where?
Everybody, we are live and we want to welcome you to the Sister Circle. So the Sister Circle is live and ready to go. And when I tell you that I am super excited about tonight, first of all, the topic alone is something that everybody is just talking about, and everybody kind of wants to hear what do other people think. Am I the only one thinking this, or are other people feeling the same way I'm feeling? And so when we as mothers, as sisters, as friends, discuss what's the next thing that we should talk about, this was primary on our list, right? And so we're talking tonight about, are schools ready to open? Are we ready to send our kids, these babies, back to school? And so I know that I can certainly give my perspective as a principal, but I'm a principal of a private school. I wanted to bring someone else in, and I'm so excited because she was a parent when I was a principal in Richardson ISD, and I love Richardson ISD. It's been a great experience for me. But Regina Harris is the District 4 Board of Trustee for District 4. Is that correct?
That is correct.
That's correct.
That is correct.
So can you tell us real quick just what encompasses the area of District 4?
So District 4, I always like to kind of explain it. If you're familiar with the area, is from about 635 or 75, all the way down Forest Lane to about Plano Road, and some of the area outside of that. So I've got about 6 elementary schools that I'm responsible for. But also remember that as a board of trustee, not only am I responsible for District 4, I'm also responsible for all the students in our ISD.
Awesome. That's right. You speak for all students, so that's amazing. So really what I wanted to start, I did a little bit of just general research, and really all of us will jump in and just ask questions, and really not just questions, just dialogue. So we're all having a dialogue. But so one of the things that I read, right, is that, and I just wanted to give some basic statistics, right? So they say, as we're dealing with the coronavirus and the pandemic, it says that 8,858 Texans are in the hospital for the coronavirus as of July 23rd. 9,507 new cases were reported on July 23rd, and that there were 60,508 viral tests reported on July 22nd, right? And then the last one that was reported, and this is the Texas Tribune, is where I got this. It says that 4,521 Texans have died as of July 23rd from the virus. And they said that is 173 more deaths than the day before, and 960 more than a week ago.
Yeah.
So when we think about this topic and this situation, I wanted us to put some real numbers to this, because the decision isn't something that districts and schools are making light of. It's not something that they, that people just wake up and like, oh yeah, I think we should try this, or I think we should try that. Everyone is really putting a lot of effort and thought into what's best for everyone. And so some of the things that schools have to deal with or contend with is, we're also thinking about the physical life, right? But the psychological, the impact of COVID on the psychological effects, the financial impact, right, on families. And so, there's a need for families to get back to work and get back in school. But as one superintendent said, there's a need for preservation of life. And where do those come together? So I think the first question I'm going to ask you, Regina, is really, and this is for everybody, the topic: are we ready to open up schools? What are your thoughts? Should we be getting ready to go back to school? And anyone can answer that question.
So I'm just going to step right out there as a parent, as a school board trustee. We are not ready. And from my personal perspective, I'm looking for those numbers that you just gave us. I'm looking for them to begin to go down, because my question is always, what number is the magic number? What number is
Right.
too big? As far as I'm concerned, any number is too big, because if it affected anybody in my family, guess what? That number is too big.
Yeah, I love that. So some of the other ladies, as a parent's perspective, and we have those that have their kids in both public and private. So as a parent's perspective, what are your thoughts when you see all of this? Before you guys answer, I just want those of you who are listening, and I know we shared on our personal social media pages. We are looking for comments and questions. So in order for us to see your comments and questions, you have to post it on the Victory Baptist Church of Dallas YouTube page or Facebook. So we can see your comments and questions if you post it on the Victory Baptist Church YouTube and Facebook. Okay, so ladies, back to my question. How do you feel? And you all have kids at varying age levels, right? So I know, Erica, you have a college kid. When you're thinking about sending kids back to school, how do you feel? What are your thoughts?
I'm not ready for that. I feel as though my kids aren't ready for that. And not even just my young kids. I feel that my 20-year-old isn't ready for that, because he can still have that same irresponsibility as my 13-year-old and my 6-year-old. And even though I hate to say it, I love them, but kids don't know how to social distance correctly or appropriately in my they don't know how to wash their hands every single time they touch something, because I noticed when I had taken Joelle to look for her some glasses the other day, she kept trying to touch the counter, and I'm like, girl, stop touching the counter. Every single time she touched it, I'm whipping out the sanitizer, like trying to make sure that she's okay. So in my opinion, I don't think that they're ready. And not only that, just looking at it from a standpoint that I work at a medical facility. And at the medical facility that I work at, of course, I'm fortunate enough and blessed enough to work in the billing department to where I can work from home. But when the governor or whoever mandated for it to be shelter in place, at that time, we only had like maximum of 15 people at most in our ICU, because we get updates daily on the amount of people that we have inside of our ICU. And now we're not in shelter in place. And the maximum that I saw yesterday was 58 people in our ICU and in our facility who have tested positive for COVID. So the numbers are astronomical in my opinion, because that's a lot for just one facility to hold within their ICU. And let alone, again, when we were in shelter in place, it was much less. Right. So I don't think that we're prepared for it, and that's just my opinion.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
I wanted to piggyback on something that you said just real quick. Last night we had a RISD board meeting, and two of the major issues that the district talked about with our students. Currently, we're doing strength and conditioning in RISD. One of the main issues that they're having with the high school students is social distancing.
Yeah.
With the strength and conditioning, as soon as they're done with their workout, doing what they need to do, the kids all going to come together, walk to the locker room together, and they're constantly, 6 feet, 6 feet, 6 feet. The
Right.
biggest issue. The second biggest issue that we're having is teaching the kids how to properly wash your hands.
Yeah.
Wash your hands. So you are absolutely right.
Yeah, with the social distancing, I know for sure, my children are small. That is outer space. That is a place that they do not know about, because you have to think about it. For so long, we have conditioned them to be social, to be, caring and things like that. We conditioned them to be a certain way, and now it's just like, no, you can't do that. And in their mind, even in ours, it is very difficult. So it's difficult for us. It is especially difficult for our children. I took my daughter with another friend to go blackberry picking. We were outside, so it's like, this should be easy. And immediately it was like, hi, and it was like, great. I'm like, I mean, what can I do? It's, without having to, tackle them, say, hey, you can't touch each other, that's very hard for them and for us. So I personally don't feel that my children are ready, let alone, the building and things like that. Like it's just getting ready for all the changes that have to take place. It's going to be a challenge for sure.
Right. Yeah. So, Terrell, I don't know if you had anything, but I can. Anything you want to add, just Terrell?
No, I agree. I don't think that the schools are ready, and then also you get mixed signals because you have doctors who are saying that the kids can go back to school, but we know that COVID is a respiratory disease. So what about your asthmatic kids? And your kids that suffer with bronchitis and things. And then as far as the kids not being able to social distance, but then you're not also thinking about the educators because children, they don't wash their hands, they rub their nose and things. And so just like bringing it back home to your house, your educator can bring it back home, and it's just a ripple effect. So I don't think that the schools are ready to open either.
Yeah. So I mean, and I really appreciate you guys just giving that feedback. I think a lot of it is it's so many variables. Yeah. And I think as an administrator, I see both sides of the coin. I'm an administrator and a parent, right? So I can see from a parent perspective, but I'm also having to go in the building myself. So, and what do I bring back to my family and to my home? But on the other hand, I also see just, people are out of work. If schools don't go back, I don't, and I think we're just at a point where I don't have the solution, because if schools don't go back,
nobody does.
The people don't go back to work because we need childcare for the children. So if they don't go back, and not everyone's job is, we are blessed to still be, employed in this time, in this season, because so many people are losing their jobs. But so the other question I want to ask y'all is, in how we address this situation. So the superintendent of Fort Worth said this: we expect to see historic academic regression. Mm-hmm. We expect to see historic academic regression. What are you saying to parents that what is it that they could be doing to support the schools, right? Because if the kids aren't in school and they're working online, a lot of that burden does at times, if the kid is not independent, fall on that parent. Mm-hmm. So what supports, how do we kind of bridge this thing together with understanding that we're looking at safety for our students and our faculty and our staff, but we're also looking at that each time we're not in class, we widen the gap. Right. And so what's your thoughts on that?
I think this was not that this was a great thing that happened, but at the same time, I feel that parents have now seen how important it is for them to be involved in their child's education. I think this time has brought about what they could possibly be doing, and being a partner with their child's school and teacher. I think that their eyes have been open in more ways than one, because we can always say, parent involvement, parent engagement, we can speak that all day long, but until they actually see it for themselves and see how important it is and see what we've been trying to get them to understand for so long, I think their eyes are now open, and their minds are now acceptable to the things that we, have always been saying about how they could be more involved. So also getting their perspective on how they too can be involved. What things are they doing? So I think this is a time for a better community of parent and learning, and just educating them more. And I won't do my plug here, Kelly, because we can talk about it. But that is something that I love to do, which is to help parents and advocate for parents of how they could help their children at home, not just during this time, but just from here on out, and just giving them different ways on how they could be a better partner in their child's education.
Yeah, I like that. So, Regina, from a district's perspective, how are you guys bridging that gap and understanding that that the gap gets wider and wider
Yes.
as the kids aren't in school, but also this notion of, and especially for those, and if we have real talk, especially for those underserved communities,
Absolutely.
right? So those underserved communities are also high in COVID, right?
Yes.
And high in having that big academic gap. So
Academic achievement gap.
yeah. So how are you guys addressing that?
It was one of the main reasons that I ran for board of trustees, is to try to figure out a way to close the achievement gap between our white counterparts and our Black and brown students.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest things, back to what Amitria was saying, parent engagement, community engagement, we have got to figure out a way to be proactive as parents, as a community, and stop being so reactive and waiting
Right.
for things to happen.
Yeah.
And then we want to try to figure it out. Once you're already at the table, you understand better about the process and what's going on and ways to help your students.
Right.
But in addition to that, now we're here. So we've got a lot of parents that are just not stepping up to the plate. We had about 700 students that we couldn't even reach once COVID hit.
Mm-hmm.
We couldn't even reach. We were trying to reach them, to give them Chromebooks, to give them hotspots. So one of the things that we did was we literally physically went door to door, trying to find these students. So of the 700 students, we found about roughly 600 of the students. And we were able to get them up to speed, give them their Chromebooks, give them the necessary items that they need. Of course, we're still dealing with that now, because now the school year is about to start again. So how do we assist these families? How do we assist these parents? We are coming up with all types of resources. We're making things available. We put in community engagement positions in the district so that position is specifically focused on getting these students, these families, and these communities engaged so that we can get these kids learning. But most of it starts within the family. It starts right here at home. And if you start early, you won't have to try to play catch up. And that's one of the things that we have to work on hard in our communities. And in our ISD, we're a very diverse district. We have students who only speak Spanish in their household. It's their main language. So now we have to tackle that. We've got to make sure that our administration looks like our district that we serve. So that's one of the things that we have to do too. And it's another reason why I got on the board, is because it is so important that your school board, as well as your administration, your staff, your principals, look like those students that you serve, so that you can speak the language and help those kids out.
So Regina, I have a question for you. With us trying to, and I say us as this panel right here, and trying to communicate to parents how important it is to be involved. For those parents who were involved and are no longer able to be at the school, PSA, PTAs, things like that, what are some ways that you feel they could continue their active duty with being involved and helping other parents to be involved during this time?
So I know for us, it's a little different because we're public school.
Yeah.
So for us, we have had so many different communities, Facebook programs, and because of the whole George Floyd situation that happened, we're focused a lot on diversity and racism in our ISD. So we have developed a strategic planning committee that's specifically focused on diversity. And so we have that opportunity to reach out to that. And before this, it was so hard for us to get people engaged in our committees. But now we had so many people to apply to work on our committees, we had to put a stop to it. We had to,
Wow.
put a cap on it. We had like over 130 people who signed up to be on our equity and diversity committees.
Wow.
And so now it's just, and some, as we all know, sometimes those bad things bring about the good things. And so this is kind of what is beginning to happen. We had a situation not too long ago where some moms in Lake Highlands, and if you're familiar with Lake Highlands, it's predominantly white, came together and put up a memorial on the fence of Lake Highlands High School. And it was 188 African Americans who had been murdered due to some type of racist violence, whether it was police brutality or anything. It was Martin Luther King, it was all types of people. So then that brought about a whole nother stream of controversy, because then someone came through and put up a Black Lives Matter sign. So then when that happened, you had all the white neighbors in Lake Highlands that started to complain. And so we had to ask that the Black Lives Matter sign be pulled down. But what that did was it woke up the African Americans in the Hamilton Park community to say, hey, now we need to do something because those people in Lake Highlands did something. So even though it wasn't a good situation, it woke these people up here to say, okay, now we need to do something because those people did something. Why aren't we doing something? Mm-hmm. So sometimes it just kind of takes things like that, or just like kind of a mentorship. What we're doing, what I'm seeing a lot of in RISD is we're beginning to have more diverse leadership in RISD. Right now, we currently have at Hamilton Park, Michael Thomas, which is our principal. We just hired another African-American male principal at Hamilton Park because, Hamilton Park was kind of suffering. So I'm hoping that that's going to kind of change a little bit of the dynamic over at Hamilton Park as well. But again, a lot of it is just a lot of hard work. And one of the things that Dr. Stone said last night was a lot of this work is hard work and it's messy work. Mm-hmm. It's really messy work. And you've got to have the heart and the patience and the time to get in there, to get your feelings hurt, to hear things that people say that you didn't know they would say. And I've experienced that. And you've got to be visible. Yeah. As a leader, you've got to be visible to your community. And you've got to show them that you're willing to do the work. And then you'll be able to pull some people along with you.
So I love that because I feel like you already transitioned. Sorry, y'all, I disappeared and I came back. But I'm back. And so I really want to stay with that topic, and we go back to the COVID topic, but I want to stay with the topic of, diversity and inclusion. I know you're on that committee of the Equity and Diversity Committee. So what is the message? I know several parents of color, right? And maybe they live in districts where they are the minority, right? And their kid is the only kid in a class. And you mentioned the notion of representation, and representation matters, right? We believe that that's important. What do you say to those parents that maybe at times are, and I've been in RISD where there are some campuses that are, because of the side of town that it's on, that lack that diversity? What's the message to them when they're in those types of schools and environments? And what do you say to them to share with their kids?
You've got to get in. You've got to get in and dig in. Because Kelly, as you know, the entire time that I was on at Hamilton Park on their PTA, it was predominantly white. And here I am now on the Board of Trustees, where I'm the only African American that's on the Board of Trustees. And now we finally have a Hispanic female that's on Board of Trustees as well. But you've got to stay focused. You've got to know, what you're trying to do, who you're trying to do it for. Mm-hmm. And, the one thing that I always think about is people always say, oh, the PTA is cliquish. Well, it's really not cliquish unless you're in it. Mm-hmm. So, get in it, get involved. Don't worry about, what you think is happening, because once you get in there, it's really not that bad. I mean, I've developed quite a few really good relationships with most of the ladies, because spent a lot of time on a PTA at Hamilton Park at the elementary level. I became the president in the junior high, and then I was president over at the high school. And now I'm on board of trustees. And, it's not because, I'm best friends with them. It's because I care about the students.
Yeah.
And, I want to make sure that those students can see that it can be done. And then the other thing, that I hear from a lot of our African American families and moms is, oh, I don't have time. I have a job.
Mm-hmm.
I do too. I got a job. Board of Trustees doesn't pay me. That's my free work. I've got a job that really pays the bills. And guess what? I'm single. I'm a single mom. So it can absolutely be done. Now, I'm not suggesting that someone do all the crazy stuff that I've done, because I've done a lot. I've done a lot. But what I will say is make yourself aware of what's going on.
Yeah.
There are so many, and I saw it at Hamilton Park, so many times, because I was around a lot of the white females, I would see how they would treat an African American young man differently than they would treat a white kid that was acting up. And I had to call them on it. Now, they wouldn't have been called on it had I not been there.
Right.
To call them on it and say, no, this can't happen. This isn't going to happen. And so you just have to kind of find some way to get involved in the schools. And maybe PTA is not your thing, but there's so many extracurricular activities out there now for our kids. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It is ridiculous. And so there's no excuse for anyone not to be involved in the schools. And one of the simplest things that I always suggest to parents, when you come to that school and pick up your kid, put that cell phone down.
Mm-hmm.
Greet your kid, spend time with your kid, understand what your child is going through.
Yeah.
That is one of the most important things, is to understand your own child, listen to them and understand them, and get involved. It's just so easy. It is so simple.
And I love that but I think it also rings true. Whether you're in you're the only person of color in an all minority school or the whole school.
Yeah.
I think somebody, from a parent's perspective, you have to be engaged. You have to get involved. And, one of the things we always say is that education is is a three-legged stool. So it's the parent, it's the teachers, and it's the kids. Everybody plays a part in the success of that. And so as parents, we want to give that authority over to the teachers in the school, which they own it because of, that's their profession. But the partnership in education is where we see our kids really thrive and grow. But your point, I just think, the difficulty, especially now with all of what's going on with Black Lives Matter. And, as we think about this next upcoming school year, I just encourage parents of color to get involved, get engaged. And I think that's how you change the narrative. That's how you change the course, as a principal, right? The parent that's the squeaky wheel is the one that I respond to, right? The quickest, because, they've contacted the board, or, they've copied everybody in the world on this email that they've sent me. So, because they have a concern and it means something and it matters to them. And so, I just think that you really hit that. And ladies, is there, anything else in relation to what Regina said that you was kind of going to add?
I also wanted to say real quick too is, when you get involved, especially if you are involved with, a group that doesn't necessarily look like you're the only one, just be yourself. Just be yourself. You don't ever have to try to be like somebody else or feel like you have to, alter the way you talk, what you do, the subjects that you bring up. And sometimes it's kind of hard for us when we get around them. We always kind of feel like we got to kind of alter the conversation, kind of talk about what, you know,
just talk, just do it.
Yeah, do. I'm me. This is me. This is my kid. This is what me and my family, do. This is what we do, and this is how you get them to understand who you are.
But this is how you also educate them too. It is a way to educate them in a realistic environment, not just, through books and things like that. But this is a one-on-one time that they'll be able to really see it and embrace it and understand, from our perspective. And I don't think that they see it because we aren't vocal enough. I think we care too much about, I don't want them to see me this way. No. No, we have to be seen, and we have to. I think it is up to us to educate them from our perspective. I'm not saying that the onus should always be on us. I think there are ways that they could also seek out how they can do things differently. And I think it coming from us is beneficial because they can get that personal interaction. And to be able to see it firsthand. So
yeah.
I agree. And I just want to say this for those that are watching again, if you have a comment or a question or anything that you want to say, please post on the Victory Baptist Church of Dallas YouTube page and Facebook. So if you're sending me some on my personal page, we're not going to see it in our thread while we're looking here. But so again, questions, comments, thoughts, please put them on the Victory Baptist Church of Dallas. So we have Simone here is saying, I think some young parents don't really understand the importance of being a part of the PTO or, the PTA.
I think that's true. I think that's really true. And it could come from, their parents weren't involved. So I think that has a lot to do with it as well. But, I think it is up to you as a parent to say to yourself, what is important? Is it important for me? Is this information important for me to know about what's going on with my child and their education in their school and their environment? Because honestly, you are sending your child to a place for 8 hours or more and you don't know anything about it. That is a problem. I would think that you will want to know the ins and outs of what is happening at your child's school on a daily basis. I know we all get flooded with information, with emails and texts and things like that. But hey, at some point, you have got to sit down and read that information. And you have a right as a parent to ask questions. If there's something you do not know or you do not understand, you have a right to understand every and anything that someone sends out to you about what's happening at your child's school and what's going on with your child's education. Point blank, you have a right to it.
Yeah. And I agree with that. And I will say this, that I will put some of the onus on, especially like PTA, because they don't do a really good job of really expressing what it really means. Because I'm going to tell you right now, PTA goes deep.
Yeah.
It's very, very deep. And what a lot of people don't know is that a lot of it is about politics. I have gotten on the bus with PTA. We have taken 5 bus loads of students and parents and PTA members to Austin, and we have rallied on the steps of Austin to make changes. And a lot of people don't think about the PTA, being that powerful. Mm-hmm. It is a powerful group. And once your community has enough PTA members, in which RISD does, each time I was a PTA president, I always tried to get the highest membership numbers, and I hit the nail on the head every time. RHS's PTA, we had the largest PTA membership in the state of Texas when I was the president. Wow. Yeah, it was huge. And for Austin, when they see numbers like that, they listen. And they begin to make change. And they are afraid of the PTA moms. A lot of people think of PTA, and it's serious. Yeah. It's serious. I mean, the first time I went to Austin and we rallied on those steps and we got a personal meeting with a lot of the politicians. And it was just, a few students. We had a handful of students and a handful of the executive membership. And it was pretty impressive how they truly, truly listened. And once they see those big numbers coming from PTA, a lot of people just think that it's, oh, I'm just giving my $10. We're gonna do this. We're gonna sell this, but it is very deep.
Yeah.
It is very, very deep. So I will say, and I've been kind of pushing the Council of PTAs over at RISD to do a better job at communicating, what you really, really do, because they truly advocate for the students, for all of them. Because now they have the inclusion committees, and now they have the special needs committee. So they've covered all of their bases. And once they go to Austin, they listen. The folks in Austin listen. So it's a lot deeper than what we see on the surface. But the PTA and PTOs can do a better job at really truly explaining, especially in our communities of color.
Yeah.
Not to truly say this is what this really means. And I'm gonna tell you, when I was president, I used to, everybody laugh at me about this, but I used to stand at the membership table, and when people of color would come by and they'd be like, pass by, I'd run up and say, can you come here for a second? And I'd just have that one-on-one real talk. I'd be like, let me tell you, get them signed up. And in RISD, you could become a PTA member, in high school. Well, actually, they pulled it all the way down to elementary school. And what that means is that now you're eligible for scholarship money. This is free money. Put your money in that bucket. Put your name in that bucket. So it's stuff like that we're not very clear about.
Yeah.
PTA, and it really needs to be pushed. It needs to be, there's a lot of funding that goes in for programs and things like that for the kids that can't afford it, and they can do a better job at really expressing and explaining about what all this PTA stuff means, because it's pretty big.
Yeah, so I think that's awesome. I just think, parents and sometimes when we hear PTA or these organizations, we think of cookies and I got to bake and I got a party, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not interested in that. But it's a bigger thing, and it's just being involved. It's just being connected. It's it's a parent that is visible, and your kids appreciate it. Constantly what you think, your kids appreciate that you're present at their school and involved in what's going on. So that's huge. Okay, so let's go back and y'all,
I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
How do you, and this is so hard, how do you guide a parent on what do they choose? What if their school or district is giving an option? How do you go about choosing what because there's so much information, it's not all good. How do I choose? And I'm a working parent or I'm a single parent, and what do I do?
As far as volunteering?
Well, choosing for school. So we're going, I'm
going back to school.
I took this back to reopening. How do I choose? What do I do?
Woo, that's a tough one. Again, I've seen so many different situations. I was just talking to a set of parents. They're both teachers in DISD.
Wow.
They have a special needs student who is incoming 7th grader. So not a baby, but special needs. So cannot, really sit alone. And then they have another student who's a 9th grader. And so the challenge is, how do we teach at the same time, make sure that they're learning in the next room?
Yeah.
And I thought, wow. In addition to those parents who do have littles, new moms or, new single parents or single parents with stair-step kids, all in elementary, it's such an individual basis that I don't even have the answer.
Yeah.
It is so many different situations out there that that is what we're dealing with right now. It's like on school board, if we choose this option, this group
Is upset.
is upset. If we choose this option,
Right.
this group is upset. And so you're not going to make everybody happy, because the other thing too is that you also have so many, Black and brown families who have, homes where you've got grandma living at home who have underlying conditions. So you don't want the back and forth.
Mhm.
And so now there's an issue, but you know that the kids need to get back and do their FaceTime, because I definitely want my son to get back to school. I'm not going to put him in a lot of danger either, you know.
Right.
So it's so situational. It's such a tough, it's what keeps us up at night.
Mhm.
It absolutely keeps us up at night trying to figure out what the answer is. And
Right.
it's so tough because I personally feel like we don't have any leadership at the top, at the very, 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 very top.
Mm.
We'll talk.
Right. We're just gonna keep doing this.
Yeah. Everybody's just kind of running rampant, trying to figure this thing out, when personally, I think the focus needs to be on this virus. It's like, get this thing under control and let's get back to work instead of trying to
So,
force it back to the classroom.
Go ahead, Terrell.
so even with school, just say for instance, school was to be pushed back and school didn't start until October, because that's when numbers had declined and we saw people getting better and everything. Do you see it being an issue with school starting late and ending late? Or
It,
or is it that school should just start, like they're saying, trying to do, school should just start on time?
again, you're going to exclude some people. Somebody's going to be excluded, because the issue that we're having right now is, I think that we're going to be able to target most of our students with the home learning. We're going to be able to do that, but you're still going to have that group that's, just not going to comply or just can't for whatever reason.
Yeah.
So you're still going to miss the boat on that. I still think it's better
Well, I
than
know
getting back to the building.
Go ahead, Terrell.
I noticed in the DISD district, where my son went to school, he goes to Solar Prep for Boys. They were excellent. His teachers were, everything that he needed was provided. But he also had other people that was in the same district that weren't even getting work. They
Yeah.
didn't have the Chromebooks and things, but they weren't even getting paper packets or anything like that. So how do they go about, some schools are providing and some schools are not.
We did for RISD.
Richardson did. My nephew graduated this year from Richardson High, and they did. They stayed on it. Just they did.
I also think sometimes, and for for those big districts like Dallas, just trying to keep track of all the pieces that are going on. I think, but I also think it goes back to going back to what Regina was talking about. Solar Prep has a core group of parents that was not going to allow for them not to send any work.
Yes.
Somebody was going to say something after day 3 or 4 that they didn't get anything. And I think that's the message that we're trying to get across to all of our parents. Is that when something doesn't seem right, you got to say something. You got to require this of your district to communicate with you and kind of share that information with you. So I think that's such a great, valid question. The other thing that I think about too, just to go back to Amitria's point, this is one of the hardest things that I think as a school administrator that we, and I agree with Gina, that keeps us up at night. Are we making the best decision, that we can for kids? You know what I'm saying? And not just kids, but for our teachers and and all the people that have to come in the building, because what's devastating that we open this building up and we put forth as much parameters as we thought we could, and somebody COVID, and it may die, or I mean, like that right there, nobody wants that. And, and you're like, I mean, is it, you say, is it worth it? Should we be doing this? And a teacher gets sick, or a kid gets sick. I mean, God forbid, right? And so I think those are all of our challenges. But then on the other hand, the financial impact that's happening on a day-to-day basis with places not being open and people not going back to work, it just is overwhelming a challenge, and I think that and going back to what Regina said, what we talked about before we went live, is that whatever decision is made, somebody's going to be displeased with it.
Right.
It's not going to make everybody happy. And so that's why it goes back to what, with Demetria, that I think that's why districts are now given options. So the district is not saying that we told you, or the schools are not saying we told you to bring your kids in here.
Right.
So what we're trying to say is you had an option. Right. The challenge is that option is not always given to the teacher, right? The teacher still has a job that, they can't get that option, or the secretary or the school employee doesn't get that option as a parent does. And so, I just think that all of those are challenging, and to agree with Regina, it's on a case by case.
Yeah.
Your situation, it may look totally different from somebody else that has no other option but to send the kids back to school. So, so good. Go ahead, Regina.
Yeah, I was just going to say that's another one of the huge challenges that we had in RISD. I mean, we voted as a board, back when all of this got, haywire crazy, that we would continue to pay all of our district employees. Now, this was early on. Didn't know that we were going to be where we are today. So our challenge was now, since March, we've had a whole lot of our employees that are getting paid to have a nice little break.
Right, to sit at the house. Why are you making up things for them to do? Hey, can you come out here and, staple these papers at the house if I drop it off? So I feel like I'm paying you for some work.
So we're looking at that too. It's like we still want to make sure that we keep our employees employed, but what does that look like in this new environment? Now we're trying to pivot and say, okay, well, if we do face-to-face, we're going to need, the water stations rebuilt. We're going to need, we just like coming up with stuff, just trying to make sure that we're taking care of our entire staff, so that we won't have to run into that whole, we're coming up with furlough ideas, COVID furlough ideas. Oh my gosh, we're working on it all. We're just trying to
the expense of moving your building to a COVID-friendly environment, right? So
that's expensive.
That is expensive, right? The kids got to be 6 feet apart. We got to have masks, and shields and partitions, and they got to come through a system that checks their temperature, and and all of these things are just the bill is adding up. And as a principal, I'm going back.
That was not allocated for.
That's right. That wasn't budgeted. So I'm going back to my headmaster and saying, hey, we need. So if we coming back, these are the 28 things that I'm going to need to make this thing work. And so, it's a challenge.
Which is another reason why it's so important to get the right people on your board. So your board is the ones that makes those decisions. So when we go and vote, people, it's all that stuff that a lot of us just don't understand, how all this stuff all comes together and how it affects us as a community. It's like when you go and you vote, these are the people that are making decisions for your school district, how the money is being spent. And when we're making decisions about the money on the school board, we're looking at things like this. We're not trying to overspend, because guess what? If something crazy happens, we need a little money over here where we can try to accommodate.
Right.
So it just all just kind of comes together like a puzzle. It's interesting. It's interesting when you're involved, the things that you're privy to.
So speaking of voting, and speaking of our current president, was anybody able to see his address that he made earlier, a little bit earlier today?
No. I couldn't.
Just to kind of talk about something that stood out to me, because I don't watch the whole thing because, I just but just thinking of something that he said earlier about the funding and how they were going to start or begin to allow an additional, I believe he said either $300 or $500 billion for schools, especially in reference to this COVID situation and being able to prepare to reopen and different things like that. So they were going to begin to allow additional funding, right? However, he began to also say that for some of the schools who decided to do the online learning or decided to go forth with the in-person, person-to-person learning or whatever he said, he basically made the comment that if the parents do not feel comfortable with their child being in whatever situation it is that they decide to or choose, that he or the money that's allocated that's supposed to go to the schools, he's going to allow to follow the parent. Yeah, y'all heard me. Follow the parents and go to allow the parent to choose either a private sector school or whatever it may be that they decide to choose for their kid, but allow that funding, that piece of or portion of funding for them to be able to pay for their kids to go to another school.
Another school that's opening.
Yes.
Right. So I got it. So if they want to go,
I'm about to say he's about to cut checks to individual parents.
No, that's what he said.
If their school is not opening, I can request funds and take my money to a school that is opening.
That is opening. You can take your money. He said it follows the parents, is what he said. So pretty much people gonna be out here requesting money. Can I get a refund? Two of my kids in private school. Can I get some government funding? That's all I'm saying, Trump. I just want a little taste of the 30 billion, 300 billion, or whatever it is.
A little taste.
My concern is just to penalize a district, or a school
for a parent choice,
right? Yeah. Who made a decision on to penalize a school or a district who's made a decision on what they think is best for the people, because they have school boards. So and their school boards are voted by the members their constituents. So I just think that that's unfair. That really brings down the education in those districts that need that funding and things like that. So I just
agree.
Yeah, I just think that's difficult, especially in a time where the decision itself is already difficult.
Right. And my thing is, I understand, like I said, I want a little piece, but that was just a joke. However, I just kind of feel like, why would you do that? Even though I understand, the parents wanting to go and provide better schooling or whatever for their kids, but it's kind of, that's a kind of a web that you're getting into when you're saying that money follows the parents.
Well, I also think that it's almost offensive to the schools to think that they wouldn't. They want to open up, right? Educate their kids. They know they have students that have special needs and have special services that they need to provide. I think they know all of that. But I think the other thing is, who wants to be the executive director or the headmaster or the superintendent that has to go before and do a press conference for a kid or a faculty member that passed away on a decision that maybe they could have done, that maybe do we have to do it right now? You know what I'm saying? Like at the end of the day, I just think I don't want to be on that press conference. I don't want to have to say that. And I've worked in a school where we had a and Regina's on here too, where we had a fire. We had a fire in the school one time, and I mean, not everybody's experienced that. You've done fire drills and you hoping you're getting out in the 2-minute time, but we had an all-out blaze.
Yep.
And like that's scary. That's scary. That's somebody, that's somebody's kid. That's an adult in there that as the principal, I'm like, please God, please make sure that nobody got hurt. We had that, and then we also had, and this Regina and Ametria, we had a shelter in place where they were shooting outside of the, and it was so close to the school. And it was like right across the street, literally. And we had to shut down, and and just dealing with when somebody's life is in not necessarily in your hand, but you have the ability to make a quick decision that impacts somebody's life. You want to make sure that the decision that you're making preserves life. So
I think also parents, we have to take an understanding approach too, that schools are not, like you said before, are not just willy-nilly making a decision, but it's really thought out on how we could serve all of our parents, all of our families, whether private or public. And I know that they need answers. I mean, we understand, but we can't be too quick to just put anything out there. We have parents that are like, so what about this? We like, hold on, it's coming, but we can't provide those inaccurate information to you just yet. When we give something to you, I'd rather send you 2 emails versus 20 that have all been different.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to go back and sift through, okay, well, this email said this. No, here it is right here. Make your decision. So
yeah, and a lot of times I agree. And a lot of times the information is delayed, and going back to what Regina is saying, because it's delayed to us.
Hello.
The decision is delayed. The decision is delayed to us. So once we get that, then we're like, okay, now we know what we're supposed to do, and we have plans in the wing, but we're waiting to hear,
really, like plans A through Z.
Right. We have option A. If they say this, B, we're gonna do this. C.
Right.
So, you're trying to come up with all these multiple options and plans, but you're waiting on someone else to tell you what the guidelines are. Just because this is kind of unprecedented, there's nothing for us to kind of go back and look at.
I'm asking parents to just be patient, and have some grace and an understanding that as educators, we really trying. We really
I just literally received a text message that says it's a news report that I'm sure it'll be all over the news soon. It says nearly 700 Austin ISD employees in quarantine, 51 confirmed positive cases for COVID-19.
Wow.
You said that was Austin ISD?
Austin.
Wow.
Is this coming from like summer camps, or what is this?
It just says Austin School District is dealing with hundreds of staff members who are being asked to quarantine due to confirmed cases of coronavirus among staff members. Yeah, I don't know why they were all together, but yeah.
Yeah, it's real out there, and I just think that for our parents, for our country, for our leaders, school leaders, and all of that, just to keep the dialogue open. And I think that's really the most important thing. As a school in a school district, we're making decisions as best as we can, but we need to hear from the parent. We need to hear, what are some of your concerns? What are what are some of the challenges? We need to hear from the teachers. That's why we do the surveys. We're trying to hear what overall does everybody want to do as we're making a decision. And so, you know, it's something that we all can live with. So I just want to thank Regina, because this is just a bold move.
This was great. This was really, really good. I really enjoyed this. This was great.
Thank you. This is such a bold move for a board member to come on and talk about such a touchy subject with so many people on so many different sides of the coin here. So we just want to thank you for that. I do want to just plug the Village Guide. Demetria runs the Village Guide, and it really is a resource just for parents. And it's thevillageguide.net. It's a resource for parents on just things that you could be doing, you know, at home with your kid, and that are easy. You get from the dollar store, things like that you don't think are as easy as they can be, and just a matter of, you know, being sure that you're spending time with your family. So I want to just encourage everybody to check out thevillageguide.net. Other than that, guys, I think that that hopefully we have exhausted this. You know, I got my producer in the back. You know, I say this even on Sunday, that it's like landing a plane over here, which it's all kinds of. So for those of you that are watching, we would love for you to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube page. And I want to thank the sisters that are here, and just, you know, the mothers. And then again, Regina, you have been amazing. So give her a shout out for being such a dope board member for RISD. So RIC, you got a good one right here.
Thank you.
And so, guys, we're going to wrap up. And so don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Have a wonderful evening, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.